Man, I've got a bad temper. When I get stressed out, I've got a bad temper. What am I going to do when something stressful happens? I'm going to have a bad temper. Why? Because I've psychologically conditioned myself by saying that 100,000 times in my lifetime that that's what I do when I'm stressed. So here's what I'd rather you say. I used to have a bad temper. I used to have a bad temper. So those of y'all who in the past would have claimed to have a bad temper, just start saying, I used to. Because when you say, I used to have a bad temper, that helps your brain start seeing it as behavior that you no longer engage in, and it'll help you move towards the person that you want to be. Watch what you say to yourself. If you catch yourself messing up with this, I hate this is driving me nuts. As soon as you realize you're doing that, and you realize you're walking down the path that leads towards conflict, stop and replace it with something positive. No, I can handle this. And you may come back, no, I do hate them. And you may, no, I can handle this. Stay calm. Just keep working with it until you can get a hold of yourself. Watch what you say to yourself. A couple of other things, because throughout the late 80s and throughout the 90s, into the early 2000s, I was known as the anger management specialist. Throughout South Georgia and North Florida, where I practiced, I would get all kinds of referrals because I was like the best at teaching people how to deal with their anger. And it actually picked up to where I was doing radio shows all across the United States and into Canada, where I was doing radio programs teaching people who were like driving to work, driving home from work, on how to deal with anger and stress, and corporations were hiring me to come in and teach these type materials and all that. So I'm this anger management specialist. And I'm doing really good with this stuff, but I still would notice from time to time if I was pushed and people kept messing with me, eventually I would revert back to my old ways. And so that's not too cool. The anger management guy's, blowing a gasket. And I found another couple of things that I added to my self-talk that have helped me a lot, so I want to share those with you. And this has really helped solidify me having this unshakable peace of mind. One of them, and I found both these actually in the Bible. So I'm going to tell you this, regardless of what you believe spiritually, these are still very good resources. In the book of James, which is in the back part of the Bible, it's a small book, 5 little chapters. I call it actually the angry book, because James is talking a lot how to control your anger. He's kind of talking about these two paths. He says, there's two paths. You got to be singularly focused. And like I'm encouraging you guys to be singularly focused towards peace of mind. He's talking about be quick to listen and slow to speak, But the third chapter, he starts talking about taming the tongue. He says, men can tame all the wild beasts on the planet, lions, tigers, and bears, so to speak. But the one he'll have the hardest time learning to tame is the smallest critter on the planet, which is his tongue. And so what I would do if somebody was being verbally inappropriate towards me, and it's pushing all my buttons, so to speak, which I don't really believe that, because like I said, we're responsible for how we feel, but I'm feeling it. I would sit there and tell myself, tame the tongue, tame the tongue, tame. And I'm just thinking that over and over and over again in my head, no matter what they were doing. And I would just keep saying it until the situation would pass. Because I've learned over the years, I don't want to be right as much as I just want to do the right thing. Because one of the things I've also learned, and this goes to relationships, I particularly think of marriage, you can't be married and be right. You got to decide, you want to be married, you want to be right. You want to have friendships, you want to be right. You want to have a close relationship with your children, you want to be right. So, if you're running around having a temper and stuff all the time, you're just training people not to talk to you. So I want to learn to tame the tongue. And that helped me a lot. Another one that I like a lot is in 1 Peter. It's the second chapter of 1 Peter. Starts around verse 17. And it runs through about verse 24. Not a whole lot to read in this. And Peter is talking about taking a beating for something you didn't do. See, a lot of times in life, you're having to put up with other people's messes and you didn't do anything wrong. You're doing everything right and they're still dumping on you. And so he says, if you take a beating for something you did, that's no big deal. You had it coming. But what if you're taking a beating for something you didn't do? And he says, well, that's commendable before God, because Christ set an example on how to suffer. And anyway, it talks about when Jesus was persecuted under Pontius Pilate and how he was beaten. He hadn't done anything wrong, but he was still getting beaten. That when all that was going on, when they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. And so I think of that a lot. When people are doing things, I just sit there and tell myself, do not retaliate, do not retaliate, do not retaliate. You know? And I think, well, you know, and if my redneck side comes in, I'm thinking, well, they got it coming. Well, it's not going to come from me. Do not retaliate. Watch the words that you're speaking. Set an example. Relaxation techniques. There are hundreds of relaxation techniques out there. I like some of them, don't like all of them. Rather than sit here and tell you about all the different relaxation techniques, let me tell you, one of the best ways to help you learn how to reduce anxiety and stress and anger is to master relaxation techniques. And one of the easiest ways to go do this is go to a bookstore, or you could go online, look up relaxation tapes, and just buy you a simple tape. A lot of them, they're only 15 to 30 minutes in length. Short is fine, okay? 10 minutes is fine. And you get your relaxation tape. Hopefully it's got a voice and music that's soothing to you. And what these tapes tell you to do is they tell you to sit up straight in a chair. They don't like you to lay down, because people lay down and they fall asleep. So they want you to sit up in a chair, uncross your arms and legs. You put your hands in your lap, palms up, and that's like a suggestion to be open to receive. And they tell you to close your eyes. They're telling you to breathe in, breathe out, nice slow, deep breaths. And they tell you what to focus your mind on. And different tapes will tell you to focus on different things. All right? Most tapes are the same. But I want you to go get you a tape from a bookstore or online. Listen to the tape. But here's something the tapes won't tell you to do. As you're sitting straight up in your chair, hands in your lap, eyes closed, breathing in and out, focusing your mind, I want you to take your index fingers and your thumbs and touch them together. All right? So it'll look like this, but they're in your lap. Okay? So everybody touch your fingers and thumbs and put them in your lap. All right? And every time you listen to this tape, every day, I encourage you to do it every day for a period of like 3 months. Every day as you listen to this tape, hold your fingers like this. All right, now here's the big trivia question. What does this have to do with relaxation? And the answer is nothing. And so y'all may be thinking, okay, Mark, then why in the heck are you teaching us this? All right, for this reason. What you are doing by every time you listen to this tape and holding your fingers, you are creating what is called a conditioned response, or an association. You say, oh, Mark, those are big psychology words. What does all that mean? You know what this means. You just may not know these terms. For example, there are certain smells that remind you of your grandmother's kitchen. Every time you smell them, you think of your grandmother. There are certain songs that when you hear them on the radio, it reminds you of a time you got your heart broke. Like, have you ever been in a really good mood and you hear a song when you first got your heart broke for the first time in 8th or 9th grade, you know, from some crush? As soon as you hear that, the good mood plummets, right? Or you ever been in a bad mood and you hear a happy song, it reminds you of a happy time in your life, immediately brings you out of it?